He got some solid contributions across the roster on Monday night, but a familiar problem led to a 1-point loss versus the Kings. Can Miami find a way to combat the dreaded third quarter as they prepare for a season-defining road trip? We'll answer that on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. We got a bunch to get to today, including what's behind the Heat's bad third quarters, their issues with beating good teams, and a 1-3 home record to start the season. But first, a reminder that your favorite podcast app now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Recording this after the Heat's loss to the Kings, just a disastrous loss, especially giving up a 3-point lead with 38 seconds left. Tyler Hero made a pair of free throws to give the Heat the lead, and then the team gave up a dunk to Malik Monk early in the clock on that next possession. On Miami's next possession, they don't generate anything. Pelle Larsson inbounds the ball. Jimmy Butler takes a tough two-pointer late in the clock. Nothing. And then on the final Kings possession, they do get a stop, but Domantas Sabonis gets the offensive rebound and a putback, and that's pretty much the game with 0.7 seconds left. The Heat can't do anything. The Heat fall to 1-3 at home, 0-3 against teams that made last postseason. We're going to zoom out in a second and discuss the third quarter issues, the home court issues, the issues against good teams, myriad of different issues here, David. But specifically, what do you think went wrong in this one?
If I had to look at anything in specific, I think it would be the problem in the third quarter. That's where it starts with me, is that you just cannot afford to give up those kinds of problems. There's lots of other factors that contributed perhaps to the loss at the end. A fantastic comeback led by Jimmy Butler. He was great in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. He did a really great job of helping lead the way for Miami to build that lead in the first place. But you never have to rebuild that lead if you don't give it up in the first place. They got outscored by 20 points in the third quarter, and that was the difference. Going into halftime with a 13-point lead, you think it should be enough. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So for Miami, I think it's just, I don't know. I can't look at the third quarters and understand exactly what went wrong. I know we're going to try to go into it a little bit more deeply and answer some questions about it later on in the game. But that was what stood out to me, was just unbelievable how you could give up that kind of big lead and then have to find a way to claw your way back only to just give it up at the end.
And yet they still had a chance there at the end, right? I mean, I can't help but think, yes, the third quarter issue is a big issue, and it's a very large issue that the Heat need to figure out, especially as they are prepared to embark on this 6-game trip. But you still have a 3-point lead with 38 seconds left in this game. And you give up a wide open dunk to Malik Monk way early in the shot clock, a defensive breakdown that I don't understand. Bam Adebayo was actually smart not to actually even contest him at the rim, because he probably would have Malik Monk probably would have drawn a foul, and then and then he ties the game there. But on that final possession, Pelle Larsson's inbounding the ball. The Heat have a timeout to burn if they want it, and to me it looks like very clear that Sacramento scouted that play and that they knew it was coming, or whatever it was. They had defended it well for whatever reason it might be. And that's the moment where you take that timeout. And talking with Pelle after the game, he's like, I should probably take a timeout. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't. You're a second-round rookie. You shouldn't know anything. Erik Spoelstra needs to take a timeout in that moment. You know, I thought Erik Spoelstra made a couple of really bad decisions late in this game. And, you know, I think that was one of them. And I think the other one was after that, after not generating a basket there, on the final defensive possession, just sticks with the same closing lineup: Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Pelle Larsson, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And I wonder, on a defensive stand, in a moment where you need a stop, why stick with that group? Especially when Terry Rozier was having a poor defensive game, could not keep De'Aaron Fox in front of him. That's the guy I would have subbed out. Why not have Haywood Highsmith in the game in that moment? right? Like, I don't even think Pelle Larsson was the issue, despite the fact that he was a rookie. I thought he was really good in this game. But why not have your best defenders out there on in a moment on one possession where you need the stop? And the only thing I could think of is, well, if you get the stop, then maybe it's a live ball situation. You want guys who could score on the court to get down the court, but you had the lead. Like, who cares if you got to get the stop? You get the stop. It doesn't matter. And so, I thought that was just an oversight on Eric Spoelstra's part. I think he really botched two major decisions late in this game.
That was it. Absolutely. I wondered the same thing watching that, why Rozier was out there. And while they did get a pretty decent stop against Fox, and then unfortunately gave up that offensive rebound to Sabonis, who was just too strong on the boards. At the end, even when they tried to get a scoring opportunity with 0.7 seconds left in the game, why not bring out one of your best shooters in Duncan Robinson? They wound up inbounding the ball to Terry Rozier. He wound up taking near half-court shot. That was probably not the play that they designed. They were trying to get something at the rim, maybe a lob play there for Jimmy Butler. But still, you can't put Duncan Robinson out there. I mean, that shot's at least makeable for him. Terry Rozier gave it a good shot, but that's not really his strong suit. He should have been out there in the first place. I don't think Larson should have been out there for that last play to inbound the ball. Again, that's a hell of a responsibility for a second-round pick rookie playing his first meaningful minutes in a clutch situation. Maybe it's just Spo trying to test a rookie, seeing what you've got, kind of thrown into the fire sort of thing. That kind of mentality costs you a game. And so I think it's a little bit of a coaching snafu from Eric Spoelstra there. He's highly regarded. I know he's been a fantastic coach throughout his career, but that kind of unwillingness to bend in a moment, very, very head scratching.
Yeah, I don't know if it was an unwillingness. I didn't read it as him trying to test Larson. That seems kind of silly to do. Like, why would you do that? At home, like when you just need a win. I think Larson was plenty tested. He already earned his trust, evidently, by being in the closing lineup. To me, it was just an oversight. To me, it was just Eric Spoelstra not thinking about that necessarily. And look, I think he wants to stick with his lineups as much as possible, because it was so volatile last year in terms of not being able to keep one single lineup on the court for more than 181 minutes for the entire season. So maybe he's just saying, like, look, we're going to ride and die with this lineup. These are our best players, and this is what I'm going to do. But Eric Spoelstra has always been one of the best situational coaches in the NBA, if not the best situational coach in the NBA. I think this was just an oversight, and I bet you I bet you this is going to keep Eric Spoelstra up at night. Like the guy's the best coach in the NBA. It's not a fireable offense. Nobody's saying that. He's also not impervious to making mistakes, and he made a bad mistake at the end of this one. And it wasn't the only reason they lost this game, right? They missed a bunch of free throws in this game. If you don't give up that offensive rebound at the end, you still win, despite all the mistakes that we're talking about here, despite the third quarter, despite the free throws and missing all those free throws. But it's just one thing leads to another, and if you're Eric Spoelstra, you got to do your job better than how he did it, I think, in those final 38 seconds.
What stood out to you? What was the biggest reason for the loss eventually? Was it the third quarter? Was it the head scratching decision making or lack of decision making towards the end of the game? What was the reason for the loss in your opinion?
Yes. Like all of that.
Yeah, I know. Obviously all of them. Yeah. But anything in particular?
And the free throw issue that continues to plague this team, which has not been talked about enough. Defensively, this team just doesn't really have it. It doesn't feel like to me, even last year, this team could hit a gear defensively that they don't hit anymore, right? Like, they are routinely giving up a lot of points to the best players on the other team. And that was just something we always joke about, like the random scrub heat killer. That's partly by design. We even joked going into this game that Doug McDermott might go off for them. He was a DNP-CD, so it shows you how much we know. But that's sort of by design, right? Like, they're like, hey, like if Doug McDermott beats us, like, take your hat off to him, I guess. But we're not going to let De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis beat him. But this season, they've been letting the best players beat them. And so, I think it's all those things combined. And it's a big factor into why this team just can't beat good teams. And this one was right there for them. And this was their chance to maybe be their best home win since April 2nd of last season, when they beat the Knicks at Kaseya Center. And they haven't had a good home win basically since then. So what are the Heat's issues in the third quarter? Do they have an answer? Look, the response from Eric Spoelstra and the players after the game, not exactly inspiring. We're going to talk about that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bilt. Listen up, renters. You ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. And that's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent, and you watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. You can put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. And you can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. So pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app and use Rent Game. Your Rent Game just got a major upgrade. Bilt points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points with your rent payments today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time and their new feature, Game Time Picks, and makes getting tickets to see your favorite events alive even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That can get frustrating. Never mind that. With Game Time, you know exactly what you're going to get, especially with their all-in pricing feature. It can show you the total right up front, no surprise fees at checkout. They've got their seat views so you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy tickets. And of course, their lowest price guarantee. They'll credit you 110% of the difference if you can find a better price. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. We're going to jump right into some listener questions here in the second segment. Thanks to everybody who sent in questions on Twitter using the hashtag AskLOHeat. This one comes from Brian, who writes in, third quarters, ... What, WTF, question mark. Rosanna writes in, how can the coaching staff make adjustments to address the horrible third quarter performance? We got a bunch of other questions too about the third quarter, and the reason why is because, well, it's the biggest issue facing this team right now. Nobody can figure it out. Even Eric Spoelstra after the game, when he was asked about it, said, quote, we have to take a stand, and admitted that it is deflating to be losing these games in the third quarter. Tyler Hero, after the game, said the Heat have to be more motivated coming out in the second half. I asked Tyler Hero after the game, hey, what are you trying to improve on as you kind of get ready to embark on this 6-game trip? He said third quarters, right? He said it again. He kept talking about it. Watching Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero look at this box score and look at the fact that they got outscored 37-17, and even they were surprised by how bad it was. The Heat win the first quarter in this game 25-22. They win the second quarter 36-26. They get outscored in the third quarter 37-17. They won the fourth quarter 32-26. So they won 3 of the 4 quarters, and yet, as the Boston Celtics know, that don't count for nothing. Okay? So the third quarter issue has been something that's been dogging them all season, David. It's even spilled over from last year. And so there's a lot to get into here, but even the Heat don't have answers to this right now, or at least they're not fessing up. But I look at this and I say, well, they went 1 for 8 from three-point range in the third quarter in this game. They shot 42% overall, 15 of 36. Okay, doing some quick math, they went 14 of 28 for the rest of the game. They made 50% of their threes in the first, second, and fourth quarter, but went 1 for 8 in the third quarter. And there was another game earlier in the year, I think it was the Knicks game, where they went like 2 for 12 or something like that in the third quarter. Is it as simple as they just have a... I went back and rewatched all the three-pointers they took in the third quarter. A lot of them were good looks. They should have easily, like 3 or 4 of them were easily makeable, like wide open looks. I can't figure it out, David. Can you?
No, it's inexplicable. We've talked about this before. Like, this has been an ongoing problem, and I know at first it used to be kind of just a narrative idea from fans, kind of speculating, oh, they have a problem in the third quarter. It's fun to kind of poke fun at this team the way they give up those points, and they found a way to come back and win. But I think they just wind up losing focus. I really think they go into the first half with such uber preparedness, which is why they tend to have such a great start. They're so well prepared, so fired up. They know they want to make a strong start to kind of help define this game and carry them through. They wind up just taking the foot of the gas. I really just think it winds up being something psychological where they're just not playing as sharply, because you see how Jimmy's able to dominate almost right away. As soon as the fourth quarter started, it's like somebody woke him up and he realized, oh, you know what? I've got to play really, really well and be an all-star again. And he did. He wound up scoring like 10 straight points or something ridiculous like that. It was wonderful to see him play that well. But that's having to claw your way back. So I really do think that there's something just kind of psychological about this team where they wind up going to halftime a little too comfortable with the fact they gave up this lead, and then going to third quarter saying, okay, I can afford to take the foot off the gas. Maybe it's Jimmy. Maybe he's the one leading the way necessarily. I don't want to put the blame on him because it's not just him. It's everybody really. But the truth is he winds up having to carry the team, and it's a role that he's been comfortable assuming. So I have to look at him because he's the team's best player. He has to set that tempo in the third quarter, and he's not really doing a good job of that. Neither is anybody else. So nobody's off the hook in this sense. But I think when it comes to Jimmy Butler and specifically, he winds up having to carry the team. I know he gets subbed out, so that's part of the problem also, is that he's not on the floor very often. But something has to be better. I don't know what it is. Again, I don't think the players do. Coaching staff doesn't know because it's been an ongoing problem for so long, and I don't know what the problem is either. I just have to assume it's something psychological, because at this point I can't explain it in any other way. Like they're too good for 75% of the game. It just happens to be in the third quarter where they wind up having their biggest efficiencies. So it's a mystery, and I don't know that we'll ever solve it.
Well, the Heat better solve it, or else they're screwed, because if you're losing third quarters by 20 points, that's a problem. They've lost the third quarter overall in this game they've lost the third quarter this season by a total of 52 points. That's crazy, man. Like it's third worst in the league, and they're buying like teams that are supposed to be bad, like Portland, you know? That's 28th in the NBA. So the third quarter in this game, just to kind of zero back in on this one, Jimmy Butler 2 for 4 overall for 6 points and a rebound and a steal. Nikola Jovic went 0 for 1. Bam was 1 for 4. Tyler Hero was 2 for 4. He was okay in the third quarter. Terry Rozier 1 for 2. It was actually his best quarter of this game, which isn't saying much. Pelle Larsson went 0 for 1. Haywood Highsmith was missed his only 3-point attempt. Josh Richardson missed his 2 3-point attempts. Everybody just missed their shots, man. Duncan Robinson was 0 for 1. I don't. Is it motivation to miss your shot? You're talking about like taking your foot off the gas. They kept the foot on the gas enough to get open shots. Again, I watched I looked at the shots again. They were, a lot of them were open, and then you just take your foot off while you're taking the shot. I don't get it.
No, the shot making is one thing, but I think on the defensive end particularly, like they don't bring the same level of intensity, because they wind up. I mean, it was 63-48 or so. I can't recall the exact score, but either way, it was 63-48 to start the quarter, right, or something like that, and then they just wind up clawing back, and it just couldn't seem to stop Sacramento.
Shot 68% in the third quarter. I think you're right. I think it's the defensive thing, and maybe I think it's all connected, obviously. And Jimmy Butler even talked about this. He said, when they're not making shots, they have a hard time getting stops on defense. But that, intuitively makes sense. If the Kings are just playing off of misses the entire time, then yeah, they're going to have an easier time making shots. They got a lot of fast break points in that third quarter off of misses. And so, it's sort of a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, well, if you were making more of your shots, then defensively you would be better, because you're getting to defend in the half court and they got to inbound the ball. But, if you were defending better, maybe you would have an easier time making shots also, because you're getting to run off of makes. Instead, Sacramento made 15 of their 22 shots. So Miami only gets to run off of a miss 7 times in the entire quarter, while Sacramento ran off of 14 misses. That's a problem. And I would bet it looks like that for a majority of the third quarters. The problem is, why does it look like it in the third quarter when it's the same exact rotation pattern as it is in the first quarter, when this team is good? The team is good in the first quarter. They're winning the first quarters, right? Like, and I've heard the argument like, oh, Jimmy Butler has to play the whole third quarter. Well, then he doesn't play the whole first quarter, and they don't have this issue in the first quarter. So I think maybe it's also I think what you said is that this team is so well prepared in the first quarter that they are able to just outplay these teams. But then in the third quarter, are these other teams making adjustments, or are the Heat just not talented enough? Are they that easy to scout? Is this a talent problem, perhaps, where it's like, oh, If we just run these guys off the line, make things a little bit harder for them, that's all we got to really do here. I don't know. I'm throwing everything at the wall. I know you have no answer either. I'm just trying to come up with ideas. I'm brainstorming.
No, that makes sense too. You can't rely. They rely on preparation and effort in the first quarter that allows them to build a lead, and then eventually talent winds up winning over preparation and effort, and they wind up, if you're not giving that effort at full tilt, then you wind up being out talented or out skilled, and they wind up, again, rising to the norm. So I think that's it. I think that's a combination of things. It's unfortunate. It's been a problem. You saw what happened. I mean, it kind of defined the season when it happens against the Orlando Magic in the season opener. You wind up getting blown out in that quarter. Again, you could point to the rest of the game and say, you know what, you were right there, despite the fact that Paolo Banchero went off and he had a fantastic game. A lot of his effort was, a lot of his point production was in that third quarter when they wound up blowing the Heat out. But they've done it a number of times, even against bad teams. So I think the one game that they didn't do it was probably in Mexico City against the Washington Wizards. And that's not a talented enough team so they can overcome Miami's lack of talent. So I think that's where it winds up residing, is that Miami is just unfortunately not good enough to kind of allow that kind of comfort level to kind of set over and complacency to kind of take over the third quarter.
One more wild stat before we move on here from our third quarter issues. Miami this season outscoring their opponents by 17 points per game. Or I'm sorry, 17 points total. 17 points total in the first quarter this season. Second quarter, they've outscored their opponents by 25 points this season. Third quarter, like we talked about, getting outscored by 52 points. In the fourth quarter, they're outscoring their opponents in total by 17 points this season. You take away the third quarter, Miami is outscoring their opponents on an average per game by 9.8 points. That's their differential. That's an elite point differential in the first, second, and fourth quarter. They are an elite team up there with the Oklahoma City Thunder and Boston Celtics. If you just remove the third quarter, just take those 12 minutes away every night, and this team can be elite. If they solve their third quarter issues, it feels like a lot of these other things can click into place. But there are a lot of other issues dogging this team right now. Is the Heat's answer to one of their problems sitting on the bench right now? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, just $5, and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, let's say you're kind of flipping through and you say, you know what, I just kind of want to watch the other game. Well, you can check out the latest stats, or you can view live play-by-play, and you can do that and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet, but only if you go visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Hims. Guys, you ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? Well, it's time to stop worrying about your performance and get Hims, so you can feel confident knowing you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions required online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. A subscription is required and price varies based on product and subscription plans. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. I've got a few more listener questions to get to here today. Thanks again to everybody who sent in questions on Twitter using that hashtag AskLOHeat. Malachi, who's actually asked this via our Locked On Heat Insider program on Subtext. You can get the link to join that in our show notes. He writes in, should we be concerned with how much the free throws are killing us? I'm getting worried about it. So the Heat entering tonight, 28th in free throw percentage, 72% overall entering tonight, and that's going to go down after they went 21 of 30 from the line in this game, 70% from the line in this game. So that's going to go down a little bit. That's after they made 82% of their free throws last year, David, which which ranked 5th. This has been a good free throw shooting team. To answer Malachi's question, should we be concerned? Yes and no, right? It's a little concerning that you have lost games, arguably, because of the free throw shooting early in the season. But long term, I'm not concerned because I just think this team is too good at free throw shooting. I don't think all these guys just suddenly forgot how to make free throws. I think it's a weird small sample theater thing, and this team will bounce back. And so long term, no, I'm not concerned with the free throw shooting, but it is just sort of a bummer that they're missing free throws right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Three free throws missed a piece by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. That's where it starts and ends right there. Everybody else kind of missed one, but they're not really getting to the line as often. When those guys get to the line, they've got to hit those. For Bam, again, you hit 2 more, you win the game. 4 or 5, that's not unreasonable to request of Bam Adebayo, who made a significant leap. Even as a center, he should be able to knock down those shots. Jimmy Butler, if he hits 1 or 2 more, 8 of 11 for him from the line, again, the game winds up not being nearly as close. So many different factors, as we've pointed out consistently all episode long, from the third quarter to the coaching decisions or lack thereof. But the free throws certainly help. It makes your life so much easier if you can convert those, because they are free throws for a reason. You get those points, you got to take advantage of those opportunities, especially if you're living and dying by getting to the line, especially the way Jimmy Butler does. So it's not a long-term concern unless here we are in a month or 2 down the road and they continue to be near the bottom of the league in terms of free throw percentage. I think they'll wind up probably reverting back to where they were most of last season. I don't know, but Bam's free throw shooting in particular has been the concern because he's missed a bunch all season long, and it's been an ongoing problem. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if there's anything extenuating with his shot release or anything, or maybe it's just, again, that he hasn't been part of the offense. That wasn't the case today. At the same time, you just can't miss those two. You can't miss free throws like that. So the crucial shots.
Bam went 1 for 3 from the line in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler went 2 for 4. Bam missed a really crucial one with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left. He split a pair of free throws there. Jimmy Butler actually missed 2 free throws in a row with about 7 minutes left. So yeah, you can't leave those you can't leave those out there, man, especially when you're trying to claw back into a game. Next question here comes from Sean. He writes in, is it time for Eric Spoelstra to unleash Kel'el Ware? We've seen what Pella can do now, and it sure would be nice to have somebody with Ware's size to grab that last rebound for us. And I can't, you know what? I've defended Eric Spoelstra in the Heat's decision not to play Kel'el Ware, but Thomas Bryant was basically unplayable in this game. What was his final plus minus in this one? It doesn't matter. I mean, he was actually a positive. That's weird, but I think that's partly because Jimmy Butler helped erase that deficit while Thomas Bryant was on the court there, but. Yeah, Kevin Love's coming back from personal reasons. But I did think this might have been a game where we could see Kel'el Ware, and it would have been nice to have a big body out there, especially at the end. So less about Eric Spoelstra's decision on that final Kings possession, but do you think it's time to see a little bit of Kel'el Ware, considering what Pelle Larsson has been able to give this team as a rookie? And I think, actually, I've been kind of impressed with this rookie class overall. You see Yves Missy starting games for the New Orleans Pelicans, I wouldn't be opposed to it, especially considering Miami's kind of apparent ceiling that they have defensively, like we were talking about earlier.
You look at that play specifically, Bam Adebayo gets kind of nudged, elbowed, shoved. I don't know what you'd call it. I mean, replays were kind of inconclusive, but DeMontis is a pretty physical player, and he was able to elbow Bam as also a physical player pretty easily out of the way. So the concern with Ware has been that he just doesn't have the strength and physicality to adjust to those kind of situations at the NBA level. Now, does he get elbowed out of the way by Sabonis, or does he just kind of sky over him because he's
Right.
as tall as he is? I don't know. That's a good question. So
And
I'm
Sabonis
kind of
did
getting
just
there.
outreach everybody too. I mean, that was pretty apparent on that last possession. I watched the replay a few different times, and I was thinking, like, man, it would have been nice to have Khalil Ware out there. But to your point, like, that is also a scramble situation. And those are really difficult to be in the right place at the right time. And you saw Pelle Larsson make a good closeout. You saw Jimmy Butler make a good closeout. Like, everybody kind of did everything right until they gave up the offensive rebound. And like Spo said at the end of the game, like, that thing bounces a little bit of a different way. The game's over, right? It was a little bit like that Derek White play a couple of years ago. Like, it just,
I don't know what
sorry, I
you're
didn't
talking
mean to
about.
bring that up. But it
Yeah.
was, the Heat overcame it. Don't worry. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but I do wonder if maybe I don't know. Probably I would. I'm gonna go with my gut here and not try to be such a prisoner of the moment and say, look, the Heat are not playing Khalil Ware for a reason. If he was ready,
Yes.
they obviously have shown a willingness to play rookies. I don't think it's something like they're not against Khalil Ware and for Pelle Larsson. Like, Pelle Larsson has obviously earned this opportunity, and Khalil Ware just clearly isn't ready yet, not at least in the eyes of this coaching staff. And this is the best player development program in the league. If that's what they think, then I'm going to trust them. Is sort of where I go to. But at the same time, it would be nice to see him.
No, I agree there. You kind of want to see something from him at some point during the season. It's been a little unfortunate he hasn't been able to crack the rotation, but at the same time, we said this even in the preseason that we thought Larson would wind up outplaying Ware right away because of his physicality, his presence, everything he does. Fantastic game from him. Like that shouldn't be lost. Is that he had some really good moments defensively. He brought it. He had that shot falling. He looked great out there. I joked that Larson jerseys were going to start selling off the racks. Not so much now after a loss, unfortunately. I wonder would Kevin Love had been out there in those kind of waning moments, because again he brings you that kind of two-way ability that Spo might have been preferring when he left Pella out there. Maybe would he have left him in the sense that maybe he would have been able to pull out the rebound? Probably not. I don't know. It's tough to kind of second guess
defensive possession, but
yeah. But at least he wouldn't have given up that space to Sabonis. He probably wouldn't have been shoved out of the way. And he's an excellent rebounder. So
you could have went with Thomas Bryant in that situation too. Thomas Bryant is big. Like we're talking about Khalil Ware, who's obviously the tallest guy, but Thomas Bryant is probably the biggest, strongest guy outside of Bam Adebayo. Like if you want to just add size to the lineup in that moment, maybe
they wouldn't have.
But I do think
they weren't guarding the they weren't guarding the rebound. They were guarding the drive. They were guarding the DeRozan, who's going to pull up the shot, or Monk, who's going to take the shot. That's why they had defensive players out there on the wing, and they
not the right ones. They needed Highsmith out there, I thought. But last thing on Pelle Larsson, if we want to try to end this on a positive, because you're right. So Pelle Larsson basically ends up in the closing lineup in Jaime Jaquez's spot. Jaime out for this game with a stomach illness. Not going to be a long-term thing. But
Montezuma's revenge.
Yeah, I've been there, man. It can get you. But the thing I was impressed with outside of just Pelle Larsson's play and in the locker room afterwards, reporters were asking Pelle about his game and what it was like and what was he doing to earn Spo's trust to be in there at the end of that game. And he was down, man. Like he was upset about losing this game. And I love to see that. Like he was not having any of the compliments. He was like, dude, I don't care. Like I'm just trying to make shots, play good defense, but we lost the game, and I guess I got to do more of that going forward. And it's like, yep, that's why you're in the game. You actually answered the question by not answering the question. So just wanted to shout him out there for a good game. That'll do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.